mine.
Let's see. This is sort of a parody on the Prodigal Son. And the story's kind of sad, so you'll have to bear with me. So, there once was a rich man who had 2 sons. And one day, a foolish son and a wise son. And one day, the foolish son came to the father and said, "Give me all of my inheritance and all of my children's inheritance now." And so the father thought about this for a little bit. And then he called both of the sons together and told them, "All of your children's inheritance for all time has always belonged to you." And so the 2 sons went out and made a life for themselves. And the wise son went and built his house on a rock. And because he wanted the house to last 1,000 years, he built it out of diamond. And he planned it very carefully so it aligned with the motion of the sun and the seasons. And in the winter it was warm, and in the summer it was cool. And he planted a garden around the house and had trees and bushes. And he planned his garden so that any time of the year he could just walk out and get whatever he needed to eat that day. And he patiently collected water from the sky and saved it up and kept it in cisterns and used it to water his plants and take care of his own thirst. And all of this work took a long time and a lot of patience, but when it was done, he had a very comfortable life. Meanwhile, the foolish son went out and built his house on the sand. Well, actually, he didn't really build it. He got one of those inflatable things, like the jumpy stuff that the kids play in. You have a little fan that blows it up. Well, it's kind of an inflatable house like that. And a little gas generator next to it to make electricity to run the fan. And a ginormous tank of gas to run the generator. Biggest tank of gas you can imagine. And he never actually grew any food for himself. Instead, he had pizza ordered in every night. And he realized that rather than waiting on water to come from the sky, he could get all the water he wanted anytime he wanted by getting it out of the ground. So he drilled a deep hole, and he used yet another gas generator and a pump to get all of this water out for himself. And because it was easy to make his house, and he had plenty of water and plenty of food, he had a very large family. Lots of children, lots of grandchildren, an enormous family. Meanwhile, the wise man, because it took a lot of work to build his house and a lot of planning, he had a small family, just enough to fill his house. So, got a little out of order. Back to the foolish man's family. They partied all the time. Constantly ordering pizza. They got the big screen TV, all the fancy gadgets, the video games. They pretty much lived it up. And then one night, a hand appeared in their house and wrote something on the wall. And they didn't know what the writing meant. So the foolish son called the wise son and said, "Hey brother, could you come and interpret this for me?" Because his brother had the gift of interpretation. So the brother came over and looked at the handwriting on the wall. And he didn't know exactly what it meant either. So they got an enormous computer and they ran all kinds of complicated calculations to figure out. Excuse me. To figure out what the handwriting meant. And finally they had the answer. And the wise son said to the foolish son, "Okay, what it says is we're going to have 7 years of plenty, followed by 70 years of famine." That's 70 years of famine. And so I advise you to make preparations during the 7 years of plenty, store up, carefully plan, all this kind of stuff. And then the wise son went back home. And the foolish son sat there and thought for a while and said, he thought this to himself, "I have a great big family. Even if we saved up all we possibly could for the next 7 years, there's no way we can make it through 70 years of famine on what we could save up. So he decided, basically, don't worry, be happy. We're just going to keep on partying. And pretty much, I leave the ending of the story to you. You'll have to decide the ending for yourself.